going into the process, I expected that mentally I could handle it. Like I knew I was committed. I knew I was kind of locked into this, but I thought the physical training would just be a slog, just hour after hour, week after week. I thought it would be brutal and that I would, kind of hate it, but do it because I kind of had to do it. And it turned out to be totally wrong.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Well, Small Steps, Big Wins family, I am so excited today, and I would love to welcome Shawn Hoyt to the show. He's a lawyer from Boston, and we were connected through a mutual friend, Amy Chambers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Amy.
Oh, yeah. And so Shawn and I had an opportunity to talk before our podcast, and he has a really interesting story and an interesting message as well. So I'm going to let him tell you that himself, and then we're going to go take it from there. We're going to have a great conversation. So, Shawn, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sue. It's great to be here. So, for background for people, like Sue said, I'm a lawyer. I'm 56 years old. I live in the Boston area, just north of the city. And I've been here for a long time, but I'm not a native. I grew up in the Midwest in Kansas City. And went to Notre Dame for my undergrad and then came out to Boston for law school, which is kind of how I fell in love with New England. I got married, had 4 kids. I've been working in technology as a contract negotiator, contract operations specialist. I'm still in that field. That's kind of what I do today. Got around 2010, 2011, went through a difficult divorce. That was a tough chapter for me. Rebuilt from there. And just 2 years ago, I'm very excited to have finally kind of found love again and got remarried. And I'm now married to a really wonderful, talented artist and art educator named Christina. And we have 6 kids between us in our blended family, young adults mostly, between 17 and 25 at the current time. And in addition to working and raising family, my focus has really been on fitness, which, excited to talk about some of the things that I've done, but also talk about kind of my why for all of that and what drives me and what inspires me and where I'm hoping to take it from where I am now.
All right. That's great. Well, let's jump into your why, because we talked about off camera how your core message is that we do hard things as we age. And you've certainly embodied that because you completed your first Ironman recently. So talk a little bit for those who don't know what an Ironman is. Talk about what that is and a pivotal moment or realization that shifted your mindset from accepting, the societal norms are like, well, you're over 50, don't, you're on the back half of life, to realizing that, wait a minute, we're over 50 and sometimes life can just get started again. Talk a little bit about your your thoughts on all of that.
Kind of got a precociously early start on doing hard things. I actually ran my first marathon at age 14.
Oh, wow.
When
cool.
I was a freshman in high school, and the seniors on the team basically dared me to run the marathon with them at the end of the season. And I wanted to impress them, and I had been training with them. And so not really knowing what I was getting myself into, I agreed to run the Kansas City Marathon in 1983, a long, long time ago. And ended up being an experience that really taught me that, not that really hard things can be possible. And I ended up doing 5 marathons by the time I was 22. So I did a lot of that early on. Did my first Boston Marathon in 2001, so that got me to 6. But then after that, I was in my early 40s, or I was in my 40s, and like late 30s, early 40s, and was starting to get injured. Knees started to hurt. All the typical things. You get tendonitis in all these places. And it's amazing. Like right when I turned 40, all this stuff started to happen to my body. And I think I had a reaction which is pretty natural, which is like, all right, I guess my best days are behind me. And I can still do 5Ks and 10Ks, and I ran some half marathons. And it was fun, but I didn't have any big goals, nor did I think that anything epic was possible for me anymore. I really did write off the fact that I'm not going to be able to do another marathon. And I was really just accepting that I was in a period of limited capability, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And I started doing triathlons in my 40s. And I first did a few sprint and Olympic distances. And then in 2014, I decided to try my first half Ironman, which is basically almost a mile swim, 56 miles on the bike, and then 13 miles run. And I did it, and I finished it, and I was very proud of myself. But I said, that was so hard. There's no way I could do the full Ironman, which is double that.
Okay.
And that's really the pinnacle of triathlon, is to run the Ironman. I think I've seen the statistics, less than 1% of 1% of people in the world have done an Ironman triathlon. It's a very rare group of people.
Yeah.
So, but I said, that's not me. I can't do that. I literally said to myself, that's impossible for me. And that's kind of the mindset that I was in. But then some weird thing happened. After my divorce, after I was kind of trying to rebuild my life, one of my outlets was fitness. Just to, I had time suddenly that I didn't have before because my kids weren't with me, large chunks of the time. And I needed to do something just for my mental health. So I started running, mostly running, but some triathlon. And I found I was getting pretty fast. And I set a goal to start seeing if I could beat some of my PRs. If I could, in my fees, run times that were faster than I'd ever run before. And I did, bro. I think I hit my PR in almost every distance, not the 5K and not the marathon. But in 10K, in the half marathon, I set my PRs. And that was really eye-opening for me. Mm-hmm. That, wow, I'm not done yet. And I can continue to get better even in my now mid to late 40s. But I still wasn't all the way there. I still didn't think the marathon was possible for me again. I still didn't think that the Ironman was possible again. And then really I started hanging around with a group of athletes and friends who were doing things that were way more epic than I had envisioned. And they weren't that much younger than me, frankly. So I really didn't have the excuse that, they're 20 or 30, they can do it and I can't. And it just hanging around with these people, their attitude was amazing. And it just started me I changed my mentality from I can't do that to why can't I do that?
Wow.
And I decided when I turned 50, the year I turned 54, which was last year, I was going to tackle two things that I thought were not possible for me. I was going to run the Boston Marathon again, and I was going to do my first Ironman. So that was really the point at which I said, okay, I'm done with my excuses. They're just that. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to see what's really possible for me. So last year was a really exciting big turning point in terms of adopting the mentality that we can do really hard things even in our 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I heard a couple of things in there. First, it was the group that you started hanging around with. And I was thinking of the phrase, who you know determines where you go. And so it sounds like the people that you surrounded yourself with actually helped propel you to do those things that you didn't think you could do. Did that encouragement, did they really do that for you and encourage you to keep going? And was there a mental shift too that went with it?
So this group of people, it was all started by this woman, Becca Peasy, who is incredibly inspiring. She's run 150 marathons. She's run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents twice. She's run 3 full Ironman triathlons and holds a number of records. So she set up this running group with a bunch of her friends that lived in the town she lived in, which is Belmont, Massachusetts. And so just started training with this group, and they're doing things like marathons and ultra marathons. Another friend of mine ran 200 miles, in one race. And we just joke now that if anyone joins the club, that they better be prepared to start in a pretty short time. They're going to be signing up for things that they never thought they would ever do. Uh-huh. It's just what happens in this group because you see everybody else doing it.
Right.
And so you're like, all right, I kind of want to do it too now. So I am a firm believer that the people you surround yourself with have a massive impact on what you think is possible for yourself. If you surround yourself with people who are very timid and cautious, I think that that's going to be how you start to see your own situation. And if you surround yourself with people who are bold and courageous and imaginative, you're going to start to view yourself in that same light. So huge credit to my BTC friends. They've had a big impact on my life and my trajectory.
Yeah. So one of the things you were talking about was in your 40s, you started getting injuries. And we have this perception that as we age, it's just a fact of life, right? Things are just going to go sideways. And sometimes it does. But as you were training, how did you navigate the changes, going from your 40s to your 50s, training for an Ironman? And what were your key lessons? What did you learn about your body versus just pushing past a perceived limitation?
Well, one of the most important lessons that I learned was just going through experience with trying to rehab from an injury. So I was having a lot of knee pain. This was like just a couple of years ago. And it was really painful. Like I would just go and I would start running and it hurt from the very first step. And it's just like running all of a sudden, which had been, fun and a huge part of my life for years, all of a sudden was really scary. And it's a big part of my identity. And so I said, I need to really look into this. So I got a scan and there was nothing that was ripped or torn or anything like that. And they recommended that I see a physical therapist. And so I did, and I worked with a PT. And at first, I wasn't seeing any progress, but I was doing the exercises. And I just said, okay, I'm just going to trust this process and I'm going to do the exercises. And then all of a sudden, the pain was gone. And it was just the accumulation of the things that I was doing in PT that just hit a tipping point. And all of a sudden, the muscles around it and all the other areas were taking pressure off the knee, and then the knee was just fine. And it really was eye-opening to me that once you figure out what the problem is, if you put work into it and you're patient and trust the process, even if it looks like you're not seeing any progress for a while, all of a sudden things can turn around really fast. Like I heard someone mentioning on a kind of motivational track the other day that think of like an ice cube. Like, you're slowly but surely putting in the work to melt it and getting it from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 degrees. You're seeing no progress. And even at 29 or 30 or 31, you're seeing no progress. But you've been putting in all this work. And all of a sudden at 32, it melts. And I think I just loved that metaphor because it reminded me of how my physical therapy went.
Yeah, it's like small steps, isn't it? Small steps to big wins on that one.
You may not see any progress for a while, but then it might there is this tipping point where all of a sudden the accumulation of all that progress, you just have a breakthrough.
Yeah.
So physical therapy has been a huge benefit to me in rehabbing from multiple injuries over the last couple of years. And so I just tell people, get a good physical therapist, do the exercises, do them consistently, and be patient. Give it 3 months. Sometimes it takes 6 months. It takes a while, 9 months. But if you're doing the right things, eventually the body heals. The body wants to heal. That's how it's built.
Yeah. You have an interesting story about the Boston Marathon in 2024, and you had an injury there as well. You want to talk about that and how that is a significant part of your story?
No, thank you, Sue. That's a story that kind of is near and dear to my heart. So I hadn't run the Boston Marathon in 23 years. So I had run it in 2001, and now with this new mindset, I decided I could run the marathon again. And if you know Boston, you have to qualify or you have to run for charity. It's basically the only two ways to get in, unless you know someone at one of the sponsors. But so I decided to run for charity and raise money, and you have to raise at least $10,000, commit to raising at least $10,000. So it's a big deal. If you don't raise the money, they charge your credit card. You're in, you're committed. So I decided to sign up and raise money, and I put my heart and soul into training and to raising money. So I was, really spending a lot of time outreach to people to talk about, the cause and raise money. And then I was training really hard with my friends. And I was feeling really good about it. I was making great progress in my fundraising. I was making great progress in my training. And I got to about 6 weeks out. I did my 20-mile long run, which was like my second to last long run I was going to do. Felt good. And then all of a sudden the next week, everything started to change. I started to feel this really sharp pain in the tendon that attaches my hamstring to my glute. And it wouldn't go away. And the more I ran on it, the worse that it got. But, I was in the final stages of training. I really wanted to be out there and doing my last long runs, and I was pushing it, and it was really painful. And finally, I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm doing myself more harm than good here. I've got to stop and figure out what's going on. So I went and got a scan, and they confirmed I had a partial tear of that tendon. And that it looked like I had been making it worse. I had been tearing it, increasing the tear by trying to push it. And my first thought was, oh my God, like my marathon story is over. There's only 5 weeks left to the race. I've got this serious injury now. I'm in a ton of pain. And I was heartbroken because I had put so much effort into it, and I had really championed, my charity fundraising, and I had, ended up raising over $15,000, which I was, very proud of, but I didn't want to let all those people down who had, invested in me in this cause. So I went to see a doctor and a physical therapist, and they kind of told me what was going on. And there was a statement that basically said that there's a very small chance that you're going to be able to run the marathon. And of course, what I heard was,
you can run the marathon.
There's a small chance.
Yeah.
So I was like, right. Tell me about this. What's this small chance? What do I have to do? And basically the answer was, well, I don't know if it can heal in time, but 4 to 5 weeks, I've seen people heal enough, to be able to run. Like, you may not be able to run fast, but it's not impossible. And you should do this. You should go to physical therapy. You should, ice it, get, acupuncture, and all these things. And so I just said, okay, fine. If I can't run, I'm going to do all of that. And so I literally just poured myself into recovery, hardcore. Like, I was doing every single thing that I knew how to do to recover. And also just trying to keep a positive mindset. I was meditating. I was doing breathing work and just a lot of affirmations that my body could heal. I literally would tell my body, like, you're meant to heal. You're in the process of healing. You can do this. And sure enough, by the time it got to the week before race day, I did a couple short test runs, and it was tender, but it was way less painful. And so with the approval of my doctor and physical therapist, we agreed I could give it a try. And we had no idea what was going to happen, take it mile by mile, and just see how long the hamstring would hold up. And as long as it stayed within a 2 to 3 out of 10 on the pain scale, I wouldn't be doing it any more harm. If it got above that, I might be re-aggravating it. So I decided just to show up on race day with no idea whether I was going to finish the marathon, which was a little bit of, that could have been a really scary and distressing thought, but I chose to view it as a positive, that I can't even believe I'm here. Like, compared to where I was 6 weeks ago, I'm here at the start line. It's a beautiful day. I'm surrounded by all these people. There was like huge crowds on the course. And I literally just decided that every mile that I finish, I'm going to be grateful for, because I thought I would finish 0. And so after mile 1, after mile 2, I just was filled with gratitude as the miles ticked off. And sure enough, I started to get 12 and 13 and 14. And I was like, maybe this is going to happen. And I had to stop for a bit at mile 20 because my legs were cramping up. I hadn't gotten any use in 5 weeks. They were a little stale, but I got a little help from the medical tent. They massaged me out, and I was back on the course in about 10 minutes. And then I felt great. And those last 6 miles or so were just bliss. And just finishing the race and realizing that I can't believe that I'm here compared to where I was 5 weeks ago. But it really gave me a perspective of just not to give up. And, if there's an opportunity and a possibility, just go for it. Because sometimes if you put everything you got into it, you actually can get there.
Oh, wow. So in that story, that's really cool, because I can see that you learned about yourself, that even if there's that small chance, just run after it and see, because what did you have to lose, right? What else did you feel like you learned about yourself in that time, even before the race or during it or after it? What are some other takeaways for yourself?
The other takeaway is that I had to redefine what success was. Runners and athletes tend to define success based on, did I get a PR? Am I hitting my target time? And we're so driven by the numbers and, kind of, did we beat our time from before? And that's great. And when you can, that's amazing. And for everyone who gets a PR, I'm always thrilled for them. And, we should shoot for that.
What's
but
a PR?
Sometimes in life,
for us runners? What's a PR for us runners?
A PR is not that's not success. Sometimes success can be something more simple, like, the first time you run a marathon at all, or the first time, maybe that the fact that you came back from injury and were able to do it, or maybe that you're doing it to raise money for a good cause, or there's so many other things that can define success. So for me, success didn't become about, my time was really slow comparatively. It was about an hour slower than what I had done, 23 years ago. And so, but to me, I was very successful because I finished the race, I raised a lot of money for the charity, and I overcame, a difficult obstacle. And so I'm very proud of the race, even though it was my slowest time by far.
Oh, wow. So what's your perspective now, given where you were in your 40s to where you are now? What's your message that you want people to hear out of all of your experiences?
The message that I really try to get across to people is that to rethink what's possible or what you think is impossible, and not to use age as an excuse. I mean, age is relevant. I mean, when I was training for my Ironman, I had to do things differently because I was, in my I was 55 when I started training. So there were things I had to do differently than I would have done in my 20s, but it didn't prevent me from doing it. Whenever I go out to these races, I always see people in their 70s.
Oh, wow.
Out there. And it's incredibly inspiring to know that, hey, here I am thinking that, I'm defying the odds by doing this in my mid-50s, but there's people out here in their early 70s that are doing this.
What did you do differently in your 50s than what you would have done in your 20s?
A lot of it was about recovery tactics. So, when I'm in 2030s, you might do a little bit of stretching and, before or after, but that's pretty much all you do. But in my 50s, I had to basically spend as much time on recovery as I did on running, biking, and swimming. And so every day I was, using foam rollers, I was using stretching, I was icing, I was eating a lot of protein. I also really believe I got a lot of benefit from taking warm baths with Epsom salt. Just a long Epsom salt soak really, to me, I found relaxed the muscles and kind of got the soreness out of them. And then sleep. I just really had to prioritize sleep. I was tired, exhausted by the end of these days. And sometimes I would, just say, I got to get a full 8 hours tonight. And if that means I have to rearrange my schedule tomorrow, I need to sleep. Yeah. And that's like the one thing I can't compromise to get myself through this.
Yeah, your number one, it sounds like that's your number one core priority is sleep. What other core values would you say drive you to do what you do now?
So there was an important shift for me because like when I was coming out of my divorce and getting back into shape and doing a lot of things I was doing it for me. I needed it. It was what kept me sane. It's what kind of got me back to feeling like I had some stability in my life. And, they really felt like I was on this quest to rebuild myself and become a better me. And I really wasn't thinking about how it impacted anybody else. I just needed to do it for me. But then there was a tipping point just a couple of years ago when I started to ratchet it up and do the harder things, like started getting into longer triathlons, started doing longer. I do a lot of Spartan racing, obstacle course, which I love, and started doing more of that. And people started telling me that I was inspiring them. Like someone would say, I wasn't going to work out today, but then I saw your post on Instagram and I was like, damn it, like I'm going to do it. Like Shawn inspired me. Or I wasn't, I never thought about signing up for that race, but I just signed up for my first Spartan race or my first triathlon because, I just really been inspired by what you're doing. And it was so profound to me to all of a sudden realize that people were watching what I was doing and that I was impacting people. And I decided that, that was the most powerful motivator for me. And the most powerful accountability is that, doing what I do because it's helping other people versus doing what I do just to get stronger or get faster or have better health. And now, I feel really motivated to keep doing what I'm doing because I know that it's helping people. And I try to really meet as many people as I can. I try to be very inclusive in my journey. And I do a lot of free workouts where I invite people to come and learn how to do Spartan race or learn how to do the obstacles or do trail runs with me. I'm trying to get more people into triathlon and just really try to extend out the energy and enthusiasm that I have for this so that others can hopefully catch the bug as well. And then it can transform their life the way it's transformed mine. So that's been a big recent shift that has made this all so much more fun for me.
Oh, wow. What would your advice be to someone who is maybe in their 40s or even, 60s or older, and they're going like, yep, that's true, but I need to overcome my inertia where I'm at. So what would your advice be?
The biggest, I'm going to steal this from the CEO and founder of Spartan. His name is Joe DeSena. Really like this guy. I find he's got very strong opinions, but I think for the most part, I'm kind of right on with him. Not on everything, but he always says, don't wait until you're ready. Like he says, usually it's ready, aim, fire. He's like, no, fire first. So, or then aim and then ready or whatever. And basically the way that translates is commit. You may not be ready, but let's say you really want to, run your first half marathon and you can't even, all you can do is a 5K today. Don't wait until you can run 13 miles to sign up for that half marathon. Sign up now, commit to it, and then get ready. You've got plenty of time to get ready, and signing up for the race, and it doesn't have to be a race, whatever it is in your life, whatever you want to learn a new instrument or you want to do something sign up for something that all of a sudden holds you accountable to getting ready. And give yourself enough time. Don't sign up for something that's next week, but look out on the calendar and find something that's 4 or 5 months out. And then that gives you time to do all the work you need to do so that you will be ready. And then the other piece of advice that I give is tell everyone about it. Because then everyone else can help hold you accountable and you feel accountable to the people that you told. If I tell people when I signed up for my first Ironman, I made a big splash about it because I wanted to feel like I couldn't back out of it.
Yeah, that accountability piece is a driver.
Yeah, if I'm talking about it to hundreds of people that I know, I want to feel like, because they're all going to be asking me, how's your training coming? And I don't want to be like, I don't know. I kind of decided not to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard when those people are holding you accountable for that. I'm curious, what's one thing that you thought would be hard about redefining your perspectives about getting older, but really wasn't? And then flip it. What was one thing you thought would be easy, but then it really was more challenging for you?
I think I'll use the Ironman as an example. So this was last year. Did my first Ironman Arizona, and going into the process, I expected that mentally I could handle it. I knew I was committed, I knew I was kind of locked into this, but I thought the physical training would just be a slog, just hour after hour, week after week. I thought it would be brutal, and that I would kind of hate it, but do it because I kind of had to do it. And it turned out to be totally wrong. I ended up actually really enjoying the training process. I was smiling and happy every workout, but in general, I was happy I was doing it. I, enjoyed the structure of it. I got to share my workouts with some wonderful athletes and friends. So on many of them, I wasn't alone. And I really felt like I was doing something important, and I was proud of the discipline that I showed and felt just good, doing the workouts and knowing I was on schedule. So that ended up being a lot easier and more rewarding than I thought. What ended up being hard and was totally unexpected was the aftermath of the race. I figured I ran this Ironman, I would be on cloud nine, I would feel like $1,000,000, and that, I would just want to kind of take on the world. And I did for a day. But then this kind of lethargy settled in, and I found myself kind of lost for weeks. And I was I was really confused, like what's happening to me. And I have a great coach, and I asked her, have you ever seen this? Like, what is this? And she laughed, and she's like, yeah, this is very, very common. Because my training plan was 24 weeks. So
Oh, wow.
for the longest time, you've got all this structure and purpose, and you're building up to something important, and then you do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, then there's no structure at all.
Oh, okay.
What am I going to do today? I don't know. Do whatever I want. You don't have, you don't have a
You
goal.
don't have that rhythm anymore.
You don't have a plan.
Yeah.
You're not, and there's a real mental setback that can happen where all of a sudden you really miss the structure and the pull and the accountability, and then just that sense of working towards something important. So I had to really figure out, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to channel all of my energies now that it's over? And I worked with her and talked to my wife and kind of figured out kind of what to do next. But I needed something. There's a quote from Edmund Hillary, who was the first person to climb Mount Everest. And he says he got to the top of the mountain and he saw this beautiful view from the top of Mount Everest, that the first thing he thought of was he looked out and saw another mountain that he hadn't climbed yet. And that really resonated with me. It was like, okay, now that I've climbed this mountain of my first Ironman, and look, I need to say, okay, well, what's the next mountain that I'm excited to climb?
What was the next mountain that you went to?
So I decided that I was going to do the hardest thing I could do in Spartan, which is that I was going to do a Spartan Ultra, a Spartan Super, and a Spartan Sprint in the same weekend. It's called an Ultrafecta. And I'd never done that before. I've done all those races individually, but I've never done all three of those back to back to back. It's like over 40 miles of total racing and over 100 obstacles in total.
Wow.
Over that stretch, over 2 days on a mountain.
Yeah. How'd you prepare yourself mentally for that then?
I'm still doing that. That's actually 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. It didn't happen yet.
I'll be tackling that mountain literally in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. But you still have to go through a mental process, I would think, because that's a lot.
The good thing is that, having done the Ironman, I was on the Ironman course for 15 hours. I wasn't fast, but I got it done. So if I have confidence now that I can do things that require me to just plug away and keep going, even when it's hard, for hours and hours and hours. I know I can do it. I also last year, just as a test of my mental capacity for this, did a 12-hour overnight obstacle course race where you just do laps all night in the dark for 12 hours. So
what was that like? Like, what did you, I bet it was interesting, but it's in the dark too.
It is.
And were you sleep deprived, or how do you train? Do you train for that, or do you just like say, hey, I'm just going to go run it?
I didn't really train for the sleep deprivation part. You just, kind of count on the physical activity and everything to get you through it. But I ran it with a friend who I met on Instagram, and then we connected, and we decided to do this in person. It was fun. That was kind of the first chance I really got to meet him in person. We did this 12-hour race together. So it was really great to have a partner, you know, and we went through the whole thing and just kept each other going lap after lap. And you get to stop at the end of each lap and like refuel, get something to eat, change clothes if you want to. And
so it wasn't 12-hour continuous, but it was a 12-hour period.
Correct. I mean, we would maybe take like 15-minute breaks in between laps, but just to refuel and recharge. But the point is that I know now that I can do a race that's going to, take me 10 hours, which is probably what I'll project for this ultra. And I know that then I can quickly recover and kind of do the next day's races. So really mentally, I feel I have confidence. So I just need to get myself physically ready. And so you figure, okay, what are the Spartan specific skills where I just my body needs to be in top shape. So I just do a lot of the grip work that's needed so you can hang, on things, doing a lot of the leg work to be able to because you put like sandbags and buckets of rocks on your shoulders and walk for long periods of time. So I've just been practicing those types of things and just getting used to the physical skills I'm going to need for that day.
What areas of your life have you found that you have taken these skills from running Spartan races and doing these hard things into your everyday life, to other components of your life?
I can definitely say that when it comes to work, for example, it really kind of opened my eyes to let's try to do some really, let's challenge ourselves to do something really interesting or really innovative. And my team was game, so we sat down. I have a fabulous team of very talented, very eager professionals in the legal field. And we sat down and tried to figure out, okay, with what we're doing, are we in line with market standard? Are we way ahead of market standard? And if we're in the middle, how can we differentiate ourselves? How can we get out in front? How can we do something no one's done before, or that is way ahead of what is average? And we took on a few challenges there, and just that sense of thinking boldly and challenging yourself to do something hard, it's definitely translated well. And we've got a very high performing team who's done some really innovative things, and I think that mindset, it really helps us.
Did any of your Spartan racing rub off on any of your team?
None of them have done a Spartan with me yet, but I have several friends who've gotten the bug and have done them with me. So I'm very proud that I've introduced, I don't know, probably 10 or more people to the world of Spartan, where they did their first race with me on my team.
Oh, that's cool.
Kind of at my urging and with my coaching. So I'm hoping to grow that number greatly. Nothing brings me more joy, other than, time with family and my wife. But on the fitness side, nothing brings me more joy than knowing that, I got someone excited about an event, I helped them train, and then they did the event and they had a great time and they did well. And just I feel like a proud papa, when that happens, and it just brings me a lot of satisfaction.
Oh, cool. Shawn, as we start to wrap up, I like to ask all my guests the same 3 questions. So here we go. So the first is, share a book or resource that has had a significant impact on you.
I have really enjoyed a book and its companion app. And the book's called Arate. Are you familiar with this?
I'm very familiar with that.
Great.
I could probably plug it. Yes, that's Brian Johnson's book.
Yes, exactly. Do you use the Heroic app?
I do. I'm actually a certified heroic coach.
Oh, well, wonderful. Well, then you know more than I do.
Yeah, and Brian Johnson was on my podcast last year in January.
God, I have to watch that. Yeah, I've really
great.
gotten benefit from it. So for your listeners, if you're not familiar, Brian Johnson is a philosopher who has done years and years and hours of research on the greatest philosophical teachings in the world, condensed them into what he calls philosopher's notes, and then figured out how to condense that all for the average person so that they can use philosophy to basically live a better life. And he wrote a book called Arate, which is about excellence and striving to be your best self. And what I loved about it is it wasn't generic, it was very specific. And he's like, okay, how do you be your best self in all areas of your life, your personal energy, your work, and your love, which is your relationships? And then there's an app called Heroic, which allows you to translate that quest for Arate, to be your best self, into your daily activities. So you set daily targets for your energy and your work and your love, and then you hold yourselves accountable to, did I meet that target? For example, in love, one of my daily targets is that I want to reach out to someone and basically, that I haven't talked to in a while, or that might need to hear from me, or that might benefit hearing from me, and just reach out to them proactively and say something kind. That's one of my daily targets. Or to express gratitude is another, or to do something kind for my wife. Those are some of my swipes, as he calls them. And it really helps me every day to say, okay, these are the things that I need to do. And if I do them every day, I'm showing up as, at least a good version of myself and striving to be the best version of myself. So I love this app and the book, and I tell a lot of people about it. I think it's a really practical, useful tool.
Sure. Yeah. And it's in bite size too. He has all of his sections, or little, his plus ones, he calls them. They're all only a page and a half, easy to read, easy to digest. Yeah. What's one of your biggest takeaways of the book that you remember?
I mean, for me, it's about the biggest takeaway by far was that this needs to be a daily practice. It's not the overall philosophies are really helpful, but if you're not applying them on a daily basis to say, what's a specific action I'm going to take today to manifest this or that, that was by far the biggest thing for me. And the app helps me to do that.
Yeah, it's a great book. I commend it to anybody. Go out and get that. And Brian Johnson has a lot of cool stuff on heroic.us, I think it is. Can go there. Next question is, and this is my favorite. What is one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
Well, you kind of did get into it, but I don't think I fully answered it, to one degree, which is we talked about when you're aging and you kind of run into the inevitable aches and pains and injuries and, how do you respond to them? And, I talked about what I did to try to recover and through PT. But, there are some cases in which, some people have injuries or conditions that really are deal breakers. And, I am very empathetic to the fact that for some people, like maybe running a marathon is out of the question, and I think the point is, how do you know, like as a person, if there's something that you want to do, but you have this limitation that you're kind of perceiving might be a deal breaker, like how do you know, is it really a deal breaker or is it overcomable? Like my torn, tendon in my marathon, like 90%, 95% of the people would have given up and said, I can't run the Boston Marathon, but I did. So how do you know, whether it truly is possible or not? And I think the answer that I give people is, at least start with the mindset that it might be possible. If you go into it thinking, I'm done, this is a deal breaker, well, then end of story.
Done. Right.
But if you at least go into it with the possibility that I'm going to explore this, I'm going to dive into it and see what I can do. As you dive into it, you may realize, you talk to your doctor, you look at the scans, whatever, that, your knee cannot take a marathon and no amount of PT or surgery is going to fix that. Okay. But at least you went into it with the possibility of being open-minded and curious that there might be a way to do it. And I've got some friends right now that are dealing with some injuries, and they're kind of wondering, will I ever be able to run a marathon again? And sometimes I hear them talk about the fact that, well, that's behind me, that ship has sailed. But, maybe it hasn't. And the question is to really, go into it with an openness that it might be possible until you get
evidence
firm confirmation that it's not. In which case, fine, pivot to something else hard. The marathon might not be your thing, but maybe you take on a really hard swimming challenge, or maybe you do something else, a martial art, or I don't know, something else that's you're excited about. But that's the advice I give people when you're trying to figure out whether or not you've hit a dead end or not, and when to know that it's time to pivot, because sometimes it is, and that's okay.
That's great advice, to actually remind us that, just to put yourself out there and try it and see what happens. And not to give up on it. Yeah. So I'm glad you shared that. So as we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
I would say, and this is going to repeat something I said before, which is take a bold step and commit to something. And it's actually perfect for today, because just today, my wife, was not a runner at all in her life, just today, she decided she's gonna run a half marathon. Her first. Never done it. She's never run more than 6 miles in her life, but she's going to do a half marathon. And the first step that she took was to register. She signed up. She committed. And I'm just so thrilled and proud of her for taking that big step. That's the hardest step, is committing. And I just think that that's the way to do it. The courageous step is the first one.
Oh, perfect. So, Shawn, how can people find you, reach out to you?
The best way to reach me and to see everything that I'm doing is to start with my website. So I set up a website just kind of as a clearinghouse for all the things that I'm doing. It's ShawnHoytStayActive.com, and Shawn is SHAWN. So there you can see links to everything that I'm doing, including videos that I've made on YouTube, motivational tracks I've recorded on Spotify, people that I find inspiring, products that I find helpful, music that I use, etc. The other platform, which is my kind of more daily, regular platform, is Instagram. So I share my story on a regular basis. I'm probably posting once or twice a week on Instagram about everything that I'm doing. And the great thing about Instagram is that I really try to be very active in collaborating and supporting the people that I follow and that follow me. So I don't use it just as a kind of a passive tool just to scroll through and add likes. I really like commenting and having dialogue with people. And, for example, Amy Chambers, who introduced us, she and I found each other on Instagram. And because we're both that kind of person who likes to connect and get to know people, we ended up becoming really close friends in real life.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Through that. So, to me, it's been a great platform for meeting a lot of people, but also really getting to know them. And I welcome anyone who wants to follow my journey. I'm happy to follow yours back and to really actively support you in reaching your goals.
Well, thank you. Shawn, thank you so much for the gift of your time. Your story has been quite inspiring. So thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, Sue. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.